a specter is haunting the modern world, the specter of crypto anarchy. Computer technology is on the verge of providing the ability for individuals and groups to communicate and interact with each other in a totally anonymous manner. Two persons may exchange messages, conduct business, and negotiate electronic contracts without ever knowing the true name or legal identity of the other.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 19. We're live and kicking. I'm gonna do the usual, give it 5 minutes, let people come in, start with some music. Test, test. Okay, let's jump into it. First up, guys, we've got Ethereum Foundation creates privacy cluster team to strengthen on-chain privacy by Vishal Chawla. So, the Ethereum Foundation has formed the Privacy Cluster, a 47-member team of researchers, engineers, and cryptographers led by Igor Baranov. The project aims to make privacy a first-class property of Ethereum, complementing existing community-led efforts in privacy. Ethereum Foundation announced the formation of the Privacy Cluster, a team of 47 researchers, engineers, and cryptographers, coordinated by Blockscout and XDAI founder Igor Baranov. In a Wednesday blog post, the foundation said that it is collaborating with the broader community, complementing existing privacy projects to establish privacy as a first-class property of Ethereum. As such, the foundation has released a roadmap outlining current progress towards building comprehensive end-to-end privacy into the world's second largest blockchain. Ethereum was created to be the foundation of digital trust, one that is worthy of civilizational scale. For that trust to remain credible, privacy must be part of its core, the foundation said in the blog post. The development also marks an escalation of the foundation's ongoing efforts to protect users from surveillance, data leaks, and metadata exposure in an era when blockchain transactions are increasingly under scrutiny. The privacy cluster is expected to address such leaks, targeting layer 1 improvements like confidential transfers and protections against RPC node and metadata leaks. The cluster will expand on the Foundation's privacy and scaling explorations team, which has been working on privacy research and development since 2018. It will allocate resources towards privacy-preserving research and tooling, spanning cryptography, including zero-knowledge proofs, protocol improvements for transaction confidentiality, and applications such as private payments, identities, and wallets. What do we think, guys? And here's the original blog post. Let's give a little read through this. Straight from the horse's mouth. Privacy is the freedom to choose what you share, when you share it, and who you share it with. We all take this for granted in daily life, closing the door to a room, casting a secret ballot, or speaking privately with a friend. But online and on-chain, these protections are often missing. Ethereum was created to be the foundation of digital trust, one that is worthy of civilizational scale. For that trust to remain credible, privacy must be part of its core. The Ethereum Foundation, along with dozens of Ethereum teams focused on privacy, are proud to support this cause. Who does privacy matter for? Quick answer, everyone. For people, online privacy protects dignity and agency in digital life. It gives people the ability to choose what to share, with whom, and when. For developers, privacy expands the builder design space. It can enable safer apps and entirely new product categories while reducing liability for builders, for example, data custody. Privacy is essential for how businesses operate and make decisions. It lets them choose who to work with, how to compensate teams, and how to structure internal processes, all while meeting security and compliance standards required to adopt public blockchains. For society, privacy safeguards democratic processes and collective trust. It keeps open systems credible by protecting the freedom to think, communicate, and transact without surveillance or coercion. Today, Ethereum is trusted to secure billions in assets and millions of daily transactions. Privacy is necessary to ensure that this infrastructure remains usable, credible, and aligned with human freedom. Our commitment, the Ethereum Foundation's commitment to privacy, rests on a simple principle: credible neutrality, security, and openness are much more valuable to humanity when paired with privacy. The Foundation has already supported privacy research and development since 2018 through the PSE team, which has already built over 50 plus open source research and development projects experimenting with privacy tools, released core primitives like Semaphore, anonymous signaling, MACI or MACI, private voting, ZK email, TLS notary, and Anon Adar, private national ID, among others. created repositories that have been forked thousands of times, forming the backbone of privacy research and development across the ecosystem. Now we are taking it one step further. The EF is expanding our privacy efforts. PSE will continue as a team focused on early R&D, led by Andy. At the same time, we are building new privacy-related projects. All of this forms the new privacy cluster at the EF, which is coordinated by Igor Barinov. The privacy cluster is composed of 47 of the top researchers, engineers, coordinators, and cryptographers in the blockchain industry. The privacy cluster is not just one project, but includes key initiatives from PSE and other EF projects, such as private reads and writes. If you remember, we talked about this last time we went live. So privacy reads and writes, making actions like private payments, votes, and interactions as seamless and inexpensive as possible to enable users and enterprises to browse, query, and authenticate without surveillance or metadata leaks, data breaches. Private proving, PSE, making proofs portable and efficient so people can verify eligibility, identity, or assets without disclosing unnecessary information. Private identities, selective disclosure and ZKID projects that protect your identity online. Privacy experience, improving privacy protocol UX or user experience and making privacy feel normal and accessible. Institutional Privacy Task Force, or the IPTF, a multidisciplinary task force bridging institutions and Ethereum by translating regulatory and operational requirements into privacy specifications by helping institutions solve real use cases. Kohaku, a new reference implementation of a privacy-preserving wallet and an open-source wallet SDK built to make strong cryptography accessible for all. Check the complete roadmap. Privacy deserves to be first-class property. To be a first-class property of the Ethereum ecosystem, and we are committed to working alongside the ecosystem to make that a reality for individuals and institutions alike. How the work fits together. The Ethereum Foundation's privacy efforts span the full stack, from cutting-edge cryptography and institutional pilots to everyday user experience. Research frontier. PSE pioneers applied cryptography, including zero-knowledge proofs, with contributions from dozens of leading researchers and engineers. At the protocol layer, these breakthroughs inform how scalability and confidentiality can be embedded into Ethereum itself. The application layer. Tools like Semaphore, MACI, and stealth addresses demonstrate how privacy can improve payments, governance, and identity. The institutional layer. The Institutional Privacy Task Force ensures this technology also meets the real operational and regulatory requirements in several business areas. Real-world assets, or RWAs, funds and assets, payments, trading, oracles, and compliance. Privacy primitives. Kohaku explores how strong cryptography can feel normal so that privacy is not just available, but accessible. And we're not alone. The work being done by countless teams, leaders, and privacy advocates push us all further, and the Ethereum Foundation is here to do its part. Our work seeks to complement the hundreds of privacy projects and initiatives that already exist in the crypto ecosystem. See 700 plus of them here. Looking forward, improving privacy on Ethereum is a great responsibility for our ecosystem. By continuing to level up the privacy features of Ethereum at every level of the stack, we can protect users on-chain and unlock new use cases for developers and institutions. The work is underway, the building blocks exist today, and the Ethereum ecosystem will continue to refine, scale, and deploy them for individuals, for institutions, and for the digital commons. Privacy is normal. So what do you think about that, guys? Is that promising? I mean, it's good to see that, Ethereum are kind of at least attempting to kind of spearhead this move into greater privacy, and they're taking it seriously, or at least it seems that way from the outside. Very promising. One of the things I guess that I'm not a massive fan of is maybe the way that they talk about it, the rhetoric. A lot of talk about institutions, which, while I understand, I don't really see as that necessary. Or at least they don't need to invoke it as much. I understand that that's what, can push the price, because people enjoy hearing about the institutional adoption. And then obviously institutions want to see commitments to certain things in order to adopt them themselves. But overall, generally speaking, a good direction, I think. So let's see. We've got next up. Let's see, what can we do next? Crypto. Okay, so next, sort of following along from this, we have a blog post, an article from Bankless. I'm sure you guys know, this is the first time I've read an article from Bankless. So this article is called "Crypto Privacy Tech Challenges Mass Surveillance." Surveillance tech is having a moment, but so are crypto privacy builders. Both on-chain and off-chain technology is increasingly being weaponized for surveillance. This cycle, we've had financial institutions arrive on-chain in droves, bringing heightened compliance requirements with them. We have law enforcement and tax agencies worldwide rapidly scaling up their use of blockchain intelligence tools. Off-chain, we have initiatives like Palantir's master database representing an unprecedented consolidation of personal information into savvy surveillance systems. Add growing concerns about privacy in the age of AI, and the implications become clear. We need privacy. These latest sagas have thankfully crystallized into a real push for privacy in crypto, with a surge in privacy tool development and adoption. Is technology responding to technology? While transparency and accountability have been hallmarks of blockchains, crypto infrastructure risks becoming an invaluable extension of the surveillance state without robust privacy assurances as well. Very true. Bankless has been covering this subject at an increasing rate, penning overviews of the different privacy-enhancing technologies in development and showcasing the starter toolkits to living a more private life on-chain. As savvy users of blockchains, we have an imperative to learn about privacy, both technical education and practical application. Below, I've amassed resources for both, put together here at Bankless as well as from other organizations whose sole mission is privacy. So crypto privacy resources. To deepen your understanding of privacy and keep track of its development, I recommend following Web3 Privacy Now. Absolutely agree. We had Web3 Privacy Now and Mikola on Fiat Lux. That was, I believe, episode 14. Great episode, great guy, great team, great project. Definitely check out. So this is great, the explorer.web3privacy.info. If you guys don't know about this, it's an amazing tool. In fact, the whole Web3 privacy project in general is really good. For, newcomers, experts, let's just follow this through. Just to give you guys a little demo. So basically, they have this big database that I believe anyone can contribute to. I think they have a GitHub page, and you can kind of add to the list there, and then they add it to the Explorer. But right here, it's got search. You can also filter by ecosystem, as you can see. Filter by category. They have infrastructure, social and communications, hardware, applications, DeFi. And then you can filter by use cases, which is really cool. So let's just open up one of these to see the detailed page. So if we go to social and communications, here you can see we've got a bit of dark fire here. Here we can see all of the things that fall under that category. So let's see, say if we go to status, for example. The thing that I like about this is not only is it very informative, they also have like a rating system where you can see at a quick glance the privacy. Look, 85.7% very good, technology 66.7% fair, openness 100% excellent. So you can get a quick glance, and then you can go through all of the different bits of information here project launch day, the security, what audits it's had, what kind of privacy it has, and then the really interesting part here, funding. So it's got an ICO here, gives you the team members. So let's go. We got our friends here over at Luna DAO. Let's see. Open source, yes. Okay. Maybe Luna DAO's page needs a little bit of an upgrade. Let's see what we've got for Bisq. And this is cool as well here, like technical dependencies. So a lot of useful information here. Definitely recommend, not only recommend checking this out, but also support Web3 privacy. So going back to the post, it describes Web3 privacy now as an independent non-profit initiative researching and advocating for Web3 privacy technologies. The organization has built out resources like a free Privacy 101 course on cryptography and an interactive dashboard for mapping and scoring privacy projects. If you're interested and going to DevConnect, they've organized Congress, a Cypherpunk Summit on November the 16th. So here's Privacy Stewards of Ethereum, or PSE, as we just talked about in the previous article. Part of the Ethereum Foundation and arguably the central hub for privacy on Ethereum, PSE focuses on developing privacy solutions through three main tracks. Private rights, making private on-chain actions as easy as public ones. Private reads, protecting your privacy when checking balances or interacting with Ethereum. And private proving, making ZK proofs cheaper and easier to run on mobile devices. Noble goals. And just to go back, just while we're talking about PSE and the Ethereum Foundation, not to, shit on them unnecessarily, but when I was talking about the blog posts and the way that it reads, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on Ethereum when, obviously good things are happening, it's moving in a positive direction, but as I say, it's just the way that they present it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you guys feel that. Is there anyone in the chat here? I think we got someone in the chat here. So let's get that up. What are they saying here? Suppy Cult now in the house. Yo. Sorry about that. I don't know when you let's check the chat here. How you guys doing? Yes, hello Cult now. Welcome. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are still there. How do you feel about that? What I just said about the way that the ETH Foundation, or a lot of contributors or fans of Ethereum talk about the adoption of privacy. I just feel like it's very safe. Something non-threatening about it, which again is understandable. But I don't feel like there's any need to apologize to anyone. Yeah, I don't know. That's what it feels like. It's like apologizing for the fact that they're adopting privacy as kind of a core principle. Next up, we have continuing kind of a thread about the privacy corpo feds. We have a post here from Concordium that says, not all privacy chains are built the same. As the debate over anonymity, sovereignty, and regulations heats up, next-gen privacy chains must prove one thing, that privacy and accountability can truly coexist. Let's break it down. We all agree that user privacy is important, but accountability matters too. And after years of restrictive policy, the political tide is finally turning. Across the US and EU, regulators are shifting focus from punishment to innovation, opening the door for progress. Is that true? Is that true? This shift sends a clear message. Privacy without auditability will not scale globally. This moment creates a narrow but powerful window for innovation, one where cryptographic privacy meets verifiable trust. Whilst legacy privacy coins like Monero, Zcash, and DashPay pioneered anonymity, total anonymity came at a cost. With no auditability, limited compliance, and widespread exchange delistings in 2024, it became clear that scale would remain out of reach. See, this is an example of privacy corpo feds trying to shift the narrative back to, you know, mass adoption, scaling, compliance. Taking a shot basically at Monero, saying, oh look, it didn't work, it got delisted, it's never going to scale. But you have to ask yourself, what are the reasons that it got delisted? Why did it get delisted? The next wave of privacy change tried to solve that gap, with projects like Secret Network and Alio HQ moving beyond transactions and employing encryption and zero-knowledge proofs to smart contracts. While privacy evolved, accountability never caught up. See, is this a euphemism? What do you mean by accountability, Concordium? Concordium bridges the gap. Every account connects to a verified ID. Users' personal data stays encrypted and off-chain, whilst zero-knowledge proofs let users verify identity attributes securely. For users and enterprises, it is the missing link between privacy and trust. Anonymity without oversight cannot scale, and full transparency erodes user trust. The winning model must deliver both. Concordium delivers that balance with a built-in identity layer and ZKPs for user verification. So, as I said, continuing the privacy corpo fed thread, this is a clear example of it here. It's almost like I remember, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was reading sort of an analysis of Tolkien's, Lord of the Rings, and they were talking about the sort of good wizard and the bad wizard dynamic, and how there's always a sprinkling of truth in what the bad wizard says when he's talking to Gandalf. And this, to me, comes across like that. So this is kind of like, oh yeah, look, here's some truth, but then let's push this narrative that X, Y, and Z is bad, or X, Y, and Z is good, when in fact we know that it's not. You're trying to mix in the truth here with some lies, basically, in order to shift the narrative. So I would say be careful of this, guys. You see a lot of posts like this these days about, oh yeah, but privacy, but we need the institutions, and we need this, and we need that, and here, accountability, using these euphemisms. What they mean is they want, like, Fed backdoors, basically. And obviously nobody wants that. Unless you're just trying to pump up your bag. Why else would you care? Why would you care if fucking Blackcock can't fucking audit your transactions. Why? I don't understand. What's this need for regulatory approval? See, we have another post by Skybound or Dejegus. Privacy is quietly becoming Solana's next big narrative. We're seeing a full tech stack forming around it. Umbra Privacy, private wallet with default MPC encryption. Archium HQ, encrypted supercomputer for confidential compute. The Privacy Cache and Voidify ZK mixers bringing Tornado-style privacy to Solana. Dark Lake Fi, the first MEV-resistant AMM with encrypted swaps, and Solana's own confidential transfers hiding balances with ZK proofs and homomorphic encryption. For years, privacy meant friction or non-compliance. Non-compliance again. Now it's fast, compliant, and composable, built for the next era of on-chain apps. Privacy isn't a niche anymore. Like, who are they fucking speaking to, man? Like, who sat there like, yes, it's compliant. Yes, the compliant blockchain. Think about it. Who are they talking to there? Who actually wants that? Who's not going to get in unless it's compliant? It's not your average person, is it? They're using it for a reason. Probably because it's non-compliant in the first place. That's why they're in crypto. So let's see. Privacy isn't a niche anymore. It's the missing layer being rebuilt on Solana. So I'm going to have to look into this a bit more. While I do, again, appreciate the shift in narrative, is it being co-opted? So that's what it seems like. So next up, now we've given a little bit of shit to the corpo feds, privacy corpo feds. We're going to look at a little bit of beef here. Apparently, Vitalik has slammed Peter Thiel's anti-cypherpunk beliefs at token 2049. So let's see what Peter Thiel's saying, and then let's see how Vitalik responded to that. It says here, Vitalik Buterin slams Peter Thiel's anti-cypherpunk beliefs at token 2049. Vitalik Buterin criticizes Peter Thiel's anti-cypherpunk beliefs, highlighting the clash between crypto values and Thiel's support for surveillance. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin recently took a jab at billionaire investor Peter Thiel, calling him not a cypherpunk. Buterin's remarks came in a post on X, formerly Twitter, and were aimed at exposing the differences between Thiel's political philosophy and the core principles that underpin crypto. Buterin shared a passage from Thiel's 2007 essay, The Straussian Moment, where Thiel expresses strong support for surveillance and centralized power structures, views that directly conflict with the values of decentralization and privacy championed by the cypherpunk movement. The essay draws heavily on the philosophy of Leo Strauss, advocating for secrecy, intelligence operations, and centralized global power. Thiel's stance on these issues stands in stark contrast to the ideals of cypherpunks, who fought for privacy, free access to information, and the decentralization of power. Crypto, which was born out of the cypherpunk movement, embodies these ideals, values that Buterin defended in his critique of Thiel. So, Peter Thiel's Straussian ideals versus cypherpunk values. Peter Thiel's long-standing admiration for Leo Strauss's political theories has influenced his views on governance and surveillance. Thiel has openly expressed skepticism of democracy and his support for intelligence services as essential to maintaining societal order. In his essay, he proposed that a global Pax Americana could be achieved through intelligence coordination among the world's governments, a perspective that advocates for greater surveillance to protect society. And here's a post from Vitalik saying, Reminder that Peter Thiel is, to put it mildly, not a cypherpunk. So let's read this here. So he's got a screenshot here that's an excerpt from the writing that we referenced earlier in that article. So this is Peter Thiel's writings here. Strauss also reminds us of the exceptional framework needed to supplement the American regime. The most just society cannot survive without intelligence, i.e. espionage, even though espionage is impossible without a suspension of certain rules of natural right. Again, there is no disagreement with Tennyson on ends, but only on means. Instead of the United Nations filled with interminable and inconclusive parliamentary debates that resemble Shakespearean tales told by idiots, we should consider Echelon, the secret coordination of the world's intelligence services, as the decisive path to a truly global Pax America. Liberal critics who disagree with the philosopher also tend to dislike the philosopher's politics. Just as there appears to be something shaky and problematic about a theoretical framework that is not subject to the give and take of open debate, so there appears to be something subversive and immoral about a political framework that operates outside the checks and balances of representative democracy as described in high school textbooks. But if American liberalism is decisively incomplete, then its critique is no longer quite so decisive. For the Straussian, there can be no fundamental disagreement with, and it ends there. Vitalik says, note that this was from 2007, a decade before his more recent shifts, and 2 years before his quote, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. See CatoUnbound.org, where he claims to choose freedom. Okay, well, we kind of knew that. We kind of knew that Peter Thiel was on the wrong side. But, you know, well done Vitalik for criticizing him publicly. So let's see, let's read on. So, however, these views directly contradict the cypherpunk ideology, which values privacy, decentralization, and the protection of individual freedoms. For Thiel, surveillance and secrecy are tools to ensure societal stability, whereas the cypherpunk ethos seeks to empower individuals through decentralized, transparent systems. Buterin's response is rooted in this fundamental clash. While Thiel's influence is felt within the crypto space through investments in Ethereum-related firms, his philosophy remains at odds with the foundational principles of the blockchain movement. Ethereum's ossification and the need for decentralization. Following the critique of Thiel, Buterin also addressed concerns within the Ethereum community about potential centralization. Some community members suggested that Ethereum should ossify, a concept meaning that the protocol should stop evolving after reaching a certain level of maturity to avoid centralization. Buterin expressed support for gradual ossification, emphasizing that Ethereum should be cautious about making large changes once short-term scaling issues are resolved. However, Buterin disagreed with the idea of narrowing Ethereum's leadership or restricting core research and development. He argued that the solution is to expand and balance the leadership of Ethereum's development team to ensure it remains decentralized and resilient to elite influence. His response reinforces his commitment to keeping Ethereum decentralized and open to wider contributions without allowing a small group to control its future. Thiel's role in Ethereum and the debate over centralization. Peter Thiel, despite his contrasting views, holds significant influence within the Ethereum ecosystem through investments in Ethereum-related firms. He has a 9.1% stake in Bitmine Immersion Technologies and a 7.5% stake in ETHZilla, two major treasury firms involved with Ethereum. While Buterin's critique of Thiel's philosophy reflects ideological differences, Thiel's financial involvement in the Ethereum ecosystem raises concerns about centralization and the influence of large players on the network's future. This tension highlights a critical issue within Ethereum and the broader blockchain space: how to balance the involvement of powerful figures while preserving the decentralized ethos the crypto was built upon. Buterin's warning about elite influence within Ethereum and his push for broader decentralization are calls to protect the network from becoming too centralized, ensuring that the blockchain remains true to its roots. Again, well done Vitalik for calling him out. We appreciate that. And wasn't Vitalik, didn't he like go to some fucking academy that Peter Thiel set up back in the day, if I'm remembering that correctly? So off the back of that, it's a good segue into the next article we're going to read, which is from Bitcoin Magazine, actually. And it's called Cypherpunks Don't Just Write Code. So let's see what the Bitcoin Magazine has to say about cypherpunks and what being a cypherpunk is about. If they wish to be effective in enacting change in the world, cypherpunks must do more than just write code. So I thought this article would be kind of interesting just because there's a bunch of quotes here from Eric Hughes, which is nice, and then there's a little breakdown of some of these quotes and it expands upon what they're saying, so we're going to read through that. Start here. So, inspired by a conversation with Fedi's Obi Nwasu about the often single line focus in Eric Hughes's Cypherpunk Manifesto. Okay, so it's a bit of a critique potentially. Cypherpunk Manifesto word cloud by Obi Nwasu generated via word clouds. Okay. Says here, privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. Privacy is not secrecy. Private matter is something one doesn't want the whole world to know, but secret matter is something one doesn't want anybody to know. Privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. Eric Hughes, A Cypherpunk's Manifesto, 1993. It's all about privacy. In the Cypherpunk Manifesto, privacy is mentioned 24 times. It is the central theme, the foundation, and the driving purpose of the entire call to action. Yet, in popular discussions, people often focus on a single line. Cypherpunks write code. That focus usually comes from those of us who do write code, and we understand that the line means cypherpunks write code to protect privacy. But this narrow focus leaves out the rest of the cypherpunk community, the broad majority who also play essential roles in achieving that goal. Privacy needs everyone's cooperation. For privacy to be widespread, it must be part of a social contract. Privacy only extends so far as the cooperation of one's fellows in society. Eric Hughes, 1993. Cypherpunks don't just write code. Code is meaningless without users, advocates, and educators, and at times, privacy-focused lawyers to defend those who write it. If only coders are considered cypherpunks, we create a smaller, more vulnerable anonymity set, easier to target, easy to silence. We should want some cypherpunks to write code, but we should also want cypherpunks who write about privacy, speak about privacy, make art, music, and media about privacy. Privacy needs people who fight anti-privacy regulation. Cypherpunks deplore regulations on cryptography, for encryption is fundamentally a private act. Eric Hughes, 1993. We also need cypherpunks who lobby against anti-privacy legislation, defend digital rights in court, lead organizations that uphold privacy principles. Beyond the code, the broader cypherpunk mission. Cypherpunks build digital and analog tools alike, from encryption software to the physical practices of confidentiality and discretion. They also require cypherpunks to design systems for actual use cases, test software, build testing infrastructure, manage projects, document and educate on privacy tools. In an ideal world, everyone strives to be a cypherpunk in the way their skills and passions best serve the cause of privacy. Manifesto update, kids, gloves or megaphones. Hughes, 1996. Code alone doesn't cut it. Not code alone. Not code widely distributed. Not even code widely used. Some measures of toleration in society for activities conducted in private is necessary for long-term success. 3 years after writing a Cypherpunks Manifesto, Eric Hughes revisited the same Cypherpunks write code focus. In a message to the Cypherpunks mailing list, he reminded the community that privacy cannot survive in code alone. Privacy needs public understanding and social tolerance. This message reads almost like a Cypherpunks Manifesto's update or bug fix, and yet people still focus on that single Cypherpunks write code line from the 1993 manifesto. Hughes warned that if privacy tools exist only in the shadows, society will turn against them. Without transparency, trust collapses. Without trust, privacy becomes marginal, something for outlaws, not citizens. He saw clearly that social consensus is the real encryption key. Unless there is a public consensus that people generally should be able to use their own cryptography, then such use will become marginalized. Legislatures will outlaw, the public will disapprove, and vigilantes will hunt down improper use. Eric Hughes, 1996. It's not enough to build strong code. We must also build strong narratives that defend it in public. The cypherpunk's mission isn't to hide, it's to speak up. The movement survives not by retreating into encrypted caves, but by carrying the message outward, loud, human, and unashamed. That's how privacy wins, not just with math, but with megaphones. I would add, in whatever way you choose to speak up, within whatever your skills, strengths, and constraints are in the world. More cypherpunks, more privacy. The cypherpunks are actively engaged in making the network safer for privacy. Let us proceed together apace, onwards. Networks are not just computer systems, they are people, places, and communities. Privacy depends on the cooperation of everyone within them. Everyone is needed, everyone is necessary. Written in reflection of Eric Hughes' A Cypherpunks Manifesto, 1993. What do you guys think about that? It's quite a nice addition, to be fair. Something I didn't know about this. Kids gloves or megaphones. This update or bug fix, as this article's calling it. So that was kind of interesting. Do we agree? I mean, generally, I guess, does that negate the line, cypherpunks write code? Does that mean that they were too focused on it? I'm not sure. I mean, I appreciate, as I'm doing now, trying to speak or make some kind of media about it. But would I critique it and say that it was too narrowly focused? I'm not sure. Not sure. But anyway, not a bad article. There's a couple of good quotes in there. And again, makes a fair case for, being more inclusive, I guess. So, next up, we have... Let's see what else we got. This is an interesting one here. Let's get this open. So, we've got an article here from The Guardian, actually. Anonymity for firearms officers will harm public confidence, Shabana Mahmood told. Senior media figures say hiding names of those facing trial would ride roughshod over the principles of open justice. So, another article in the UK, because it's getting crazier and crazier in the UK every week. And now, apparently, they're trying to give anonymity for firearms officers because they're saying that, it's a special case and that they're, essentially dealing with a bunch of gangs and stuff and mafias, and so therefore they should be exempt from, public scrutiny, because it's dangerous. But I thought this ties in nicely with the kind of continuing coverage of the craziness in the UK that we've been doing, as well as obviously it's a topic that's related to privacy and anonymity. So it says here, government plan to give anonymity to firearms officers in England and Wales facing criminal charges will damage public confidence in policing and fuel online misinformation, a coalition of editors, journalists and media lawyers have said. In a letter to the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, seen by The Guardian, the group warned the measures would make officers empowered to use lethal force less accountable than ordinary members of the public. It said the change would ride roughshod over the principles of open justice and significantly dent the media's ability to report on potential criminal activity by officers. It also raised concerns about the dilution of police accountability more generally. I mean, immediately that's what I think. Is, they're talking about trying to protect these officers, But as it says here, it would make officers empowered to use lethal force less accountable than ordinary members of the public. Why should they get anonymity, but we don't? Why are we criminals, but it's justified for these guys? It comes after the case of Martin Blake, the Metropolitan Police armed officer cleared of murdering Chris Carber. He is facing a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct where he could face a sack for using excessive force. The decision to prosecute Blake caused anger within the police, who argued officers placed in highly unusual circumstances were being treated unfairly. The government backed anonymity for firearm officers in court as part of the Crime and Policing Bill, due to be scrutinised in the House of Lords this week. However, senior media figures are worried about the implications of the changes, under which armed officers charged with an offence would no longer be named right up until their conviction. They fear a possible wider erosion of robust scrutiny of the police. They point to high-profile cases such as the killing of Jean-Charles de Menezes and the murder of Sarah Everin by Wayne Couzens, then a parliamentary and diplomatic protection officer. The joint letter signed by representative groups including the Society of Editors, the News Media Association, the Crime Reporters Association and Media Lawyers Association calls on the Home Secretary to think again. If brought into force, the measure would ride roughshod over the principles of open justice, which underpin public confidence in our policing and judicial system, they say. The ability of media to report on criminal proceedings involving firearms officers will be severely impaired, leaving a vacuum which will be filled by misinformation and rumour. We stress the importance of public interest journalism in underpinning transparency, which is essential to public understanding and accountability. It argues that the courts already have the power to give anonymity to defendants when that is deemed necessary. So that's a key, it's an important part there. It's like, why are they bringing this in? If they already have these powers, what's the need to do this kind of blanket anon for all firearms officers? It doesn't make any sense. Lawyers working for major media outlets have also claimed it contradicts human rights laws relating to the need for public hearings and the media's right to impart and the public to receive information about judicial proceedings. There is no need for an unprecedented blanket presumption of anonymity in law, the letter says. We fear that the provision could open the door to secrecy in other areas of police disciplinary proceedings, leading to the emergence of secret hearings and closed courts. Of course it's going to do that. When does it ever not? When does it ever not just increase the control of the state? When does it ever not end up with us, the people, losing our freedoms? The measure was brought forward as part of a package of reforms designed to rebuild public trust in policing. Granting a sweeping presumption of anonymity to firearms officers facing criminal proceedings will do the exact opposite. For the sake of transparency, public trust and open justice, we urge you to reconsider this harmful and retrograde measure. The Home Office argues that armed police officers are engaged in an inherently unique and dangerous job and face reprisals from criminals and organised gangs should their identities be revealed in court proceedings. There will continue to be judicial discretion to allow for identifying details to be released and for reporting restrictions to be lifted. The government has previously said, in deciding whether to do so, the court should consider the facts of each individual case and whether it would be in the interests of justice. A government spokesperson said, the work of armed police officers is unique and dangerous. Firearms officers and their families are at increased risk of increased risk or reprisal from criminals and organised gangs if their identity is revealed during legal proceedings following an armed incident. New measures will help protect firearm officers from harm while ensuring court proceedings remain public and the press can report on them as is appropriate. The identity of those convicted of a crime will be revealed once court proceedings have concluded. So, yet again, the golems in government trying to hide away, trying to protect their own, increase the power. My precious. Okay. You know what? We're going to take a little break here because we're coming up to the 55-minute mark, almost an hour. But we're going to have a a short break, very short break, just to play an ad for our friends over at LunarDAO. So if you guys don't know what LunarDAO is, you're about to find out.
Unchecked governments have eradicated privacy and truth. Those who resist are brought down swiftly, but we refuse to submit. Lunapunks are freedom fighters, protected by encrypted shadows. The future we're building is sovereign and uncensorable. The moonlit night is coming.
There we go. Join LunarDAO, guys. Check out lunardao.net if you haven't already. I've looked through the forums, I've looked through the wiki. Great. I mean, one of the best resources out there. I mean, I might be a little biased because big fan of LunarDAO, but it's true. They've got a great wiki, bunch of recommendations, bunch of tutorials, super friendly. There's a bunch of ways to communicate with LunarDAO members and LunarDAO community, and they're always happy to help. So yeah, go to lunardao.net. If you want to join the community, click on community, I believe. Let me just make sure I'm not fudging that. So we go here. So we go to lunardao.net if you want to join in community, and here we've got some links, and obviously you can follow them on Twitter as well. Give those guys a follow. So we've hit the hour mark, and I think what we're going to do now is we are going to watch a couple of videos, and then I think we're going to end on learning about some developments in Bitcoin. There's a bit of controversy over in the Bitcoin community right now over Bitcoin Core version 30. And we've got the likes of Adam Back, Nick Szabo, Luke Dash Jr., all talking about it publicly and going back and forth about their views on this version V30 Bitcoin Core. And we're going to look at it, see what we think. So, but first off, we're going to start with a video of something that I think you guys will love. It's from a YouTuber that you probably know because he's quite popular. It's called FIAT.
Getting stuck in air.
And it's titled "Apple and Google Won't Like This." So let's see what we got here, guys.
The Free Software Foundation gave humanity Yesterday, the Free Software Foundation gave humanity a small glimmer of hope for a better future by announcing one of the most ambitious open source projects of our time, the Libra phone, the Freedom or Liberty phone. The modern man is a slave to this dark little rectangle. The average person clocks in 6.66 hours of screen time daily, and if you're Gen Z, it goes up to 9 hours, no cap. But those are rookie numbers for South Africans who grind out 9 hours of screen time daily. By watching this video, you're becoming a statistic and quite literally draining your consciousness to Silicon Valley ad companies like Google and Facebook. It's a problem we should have seen coming when Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke tried to warn us with the Black Cuboid in 1968. But it's too late now. Not only are we all addicted to the model.
If you guys not seen 2001, check it out. Plus all the documentaries that follow talking about the Kubrick conspiracies. I mean, even without the conspiracies, it's super interesting to study this movie and how it was made and Kubrick in general, but conspiracies definitely make it much more interesting. But yeah, great movie, timeless.
But with digital IDs rolling out around the world against the will of the people, it'll soon be impossible to put food on your family without a 24/7 spyware-loaded smartphone in your pocket. In today's video, we'll look at the world of open source mobile tech and find out if there's any hope for technological freedom in our future. It is October 16th, 2025, and you're watching the Code Report. Maybe you've never heard of the Free Software Foundation, but virtually every human on planet Earth uses its software daily. From the GNU tools that power Linux and Android to the GCC compiler and the GPG encryption that secures your emails, the Free Software Foundation's work is quietly running underneath.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys know. You must have seen that. If you're not aware, Free Software Foundation, Richard Stallman, the GNU. You guys might not even know that you're using it. A lot of people use Linux and they don't even notice this pop up, the GNU. But it'll be there somewhere. Next time you boot up whatever flavor of Linux you're operating, see if you notice any GNU in there.
With almost every device, server, and app that you touch. It was started 40 years ago by Richard Stallman, and yesterday they announced a new initiative called the LibrePhone. They've tapped legendary hacker Rob Savoie to lead the charge, the guy behind OpenStreetMap and the guy who made Flash work on Linux before it was cool with Nash. The mission is to replace every closed source bit on your phone with open source freedom. But you might be saying, wait a minute, Android is already an open source Linux-based operating system. That's true, but only technically. In reality, most of the software that makes your phone actually work, from the modern firmware to the camera drivers and Google Play services, is all locked down proprietary code. The LibrePhone wants to rip out all these blobs and replace them with fully free software, so your phone isn't just open source on paper, but free as in freedom in practice. But if you're already based, you might be using Lineage OS to bypass Google's spyware. Well, apparently, Lineage links significant proprietary code, and FSF board member John Gilmore said, quote, "Rather than accept the sad situation, I looked for collaborators to reverse engineer and replace those proprietary modules with fully free software for at least one modern phone. It's a noble cause, but reverse engineering all the firmware and binary blobs on a smartphone is a massive undertaking. This was already tried once before with Replicant, an early FSF-backed attempt to create a fully free Android fork. It did work technically, but adoption was almost non-existent. Only a handful of devices were supported, and most users just aren't willing to give up basic features like Wi-Fi, cameras, GPS, etc. to run free software. And even if the LibrePhone somehow pulls it off, the Apple-Google duopoly is practically unbreakable. These two companies control the hardware, the operating system, the app stores, the payment rails, and have massive lobbying efforts in government at a time when governments are rolling out digital ID systems, contact tracing, and app-based verification platforms that are tightly integrated into these ecosystems. The mobile ecosystem feels hopelessly locked down, but the LibrePhone might be the only thing that can liberate us from this dystopian crony surveillance state, while preserving all of the features that we need to maintain massive amounts of screen time daily. That means there's going to be a lot of code reviews, and that's why you need to know about CodeRabbit, the sponsor of today's video. They just announced a new codex integration that allows it to execute CodeRabbit reviews directly in your development workflow. So now you can tell Codex to review your latest changes, and the CodeRabbit CLI will surface specific issues on everything from simple styling errors to more complex architectural problems. From there, you can approve the proposed fixes and tell Codex to apply the changes, or you can just allow the whole
Okay. Resources. Here we go. Let's look at the official announcement published on October 14th. So, Boston, Massachusetts, USA. The Free Software Foundation today announced its project to bring mobile phone freedom to users. LibrePhone is an initiative to reverse engineer obstacles preventing mobile phone freedom until its goal is achieved. LibrePhone is a new initiative by the SFF with the goal of bringing full freedom to the mobile computing environment. The vast majority of software users around the world use a mobile phone as their primary computing device. After 40 years of advocacy for computing freedom, the FSF will now work to bring the right to study, change, share, and modify the programs users depend on in their daily lives to mobile phones. 40 years ago, when the FSF was founded, our focus was on providing an operating system people could use on desktop and server computers in freedom. Times have changed, technology has progressed, but our commitment to freedom hasn't, said Zoe Kooiman, Executive Director of the FSF. A lot of work has been done in mobile phone freedom over the years that we'll be building on. The FSF is now ready to do what is necessary to bring freedom to cell phone users. Given the complexity of the devices, this work will take time, but we're used to playing the long game. Practically, LibrePhone aims to close the last gaps between existing distributions of the Android operating system and software freedom. The FSF has hired experienced developer Rob Savoy, Deja GNU, Gnash, and OpenStreetMap, and more to lead the technical project. He is currently investigating the state of device firmware and binary blobs in other mobile phone freedom projects, prioritizing the free software work done by the not entirely free software mobile phone operating system Lineage OS. The initial work is funded by a donation from FSF board member John Gilmore, who explained, "I've enjoyed using a mobile phone running Lineage OS with microG and F-Droid for years, which eliminates the spyware and control that Google embeds in standard Android phones. I later discovered that Lineage OS distribution links in significant proprietary binary modules copied from the firmware of particular phones. Rather than accept this sad situation, I look for collaborators to reverse engineer and replace those proprietary modules with fully free software for at least one modern phone. Triaging existing packages and device compatibility to find a phone with the fewest, most fixable freedom problems is the first step. From there, the FSF and Savoy aim to reverse engineer and replace the remaining non-free software. LibrePhone will serve existing developers and projects who aim to build a fully functioning and free, as in freedom, Android-compatible OS. The FSF has been supporting earlier free software mobile phone projects such as Replicant and is blah blah blah, and is excited to launch this new effort. Gilmore added, "We were lucky to find Rob Savoy, a great engineer with decades of experience in free software, embedded systems, and project management." When asked to comment on the project, Savoy said, "As a long-time embedded systems engineer who has worked on mobile devices for decades, I'm looking forward to this opportunity to work towards a freedom-supporting phone and help users gain control over their phone hardware." He added, "Making fully free software for a modern commercial phone will not be quick, easy, or cheap, but our project benefits from standing on the shoulders of giants who have done most of the work. Please join us with your efforts and/or with your donations." Besides the campaign information at fsf.org/campaign/LibrePhone, the project will have its own website at librephone.fsf.org, and anyone can connect using #LibrePhoneIRC on irc.libre.chat. Brilliant. And here we go. Here's LibrePhone SFF. The Free Software Foundation has been working on software freedom in computing for 40 years now. And now we are venturing into what we have found to be one of the most challenging areas of computing, mobile phones. Most of individuals do a lot of their computing on mobile phones. A lot of work is being done in mobile phone freedom. However, mobile phone computing remains largely non-free due to a wide range of non-free software blobs that commonly occur in even the most progressive free software operating systems. LibrePhone is the SFF's project to free up those blobs. This project's goal is not another Android distribution, but a long-term project to better understand and reverse engineer the non-free blobs used by virtually all SoCs made today. Launched on FSF's 40th anniversary, our aim is to bring mobile phone users into the free world we've already created for servers and desktops. As far as we know, a project as ambitious as this hasn't been attempted before. That means that if we're going to succeed, we need your help. Donate today. The FSF conducted an interview with LibrePhone lead developer Rob Savoy. You can listen to it on the FSS website. Maybe we'll check that out next week. For more information, the FAQ and the project documentation is hosted here. And there's an initial IRC channel at irc.libre.chat:6697 #LibrePhone. Please join the community. So this is great. This is something that people have been waiting for a long time. Even though there is, some good alternatives. We've got Lineage OS. Obviously, we've got what's the other one now? It's escaping me. For the Pixels. Damn it! What's it called again? forgetting now. Can't believe I forgot this. What was it called again? Someone in the chat help me out. Noob mistake here. Graphene, of course. Sorry. Graphene OS. And I've seen a bunch of other attempts at like modular phones, and they're trying to make them open source. But obviously this is coming from the Free Software Foundation, which, you know, has a lot of standing in the community. It's OG. So it's great. Hopefully they succeed. As it says, it's going to be a long-term initiative. They're playing the long game. And so, yeah, if there's anyone out there that can help them with this, go do it. See what you can contribute. This is absolutely amazing initiative here. Even if it's just getting involved in the IRC chat, I might have a jump on that later and see what's going on. So next up, we've got, going back to the UK again, where we spoke about last week, they are introducing digital ID. We now have a little bit of history actually on identity documents. So I thought that might be interesting for us to watch. This is from a channel called Big Brother Watch.
ID card from. This is an authentic ID card from World War II. Every British person had to carry one and produce it on demand to police officers and soldiers. But this mandatory ID scheme didn't last long. People got sick of the authoritarian nature of producing papers, and they protested against them, ripping them up, setting fire to them, and eventually, Churchill's government scrapped them in 1952. Then, Tony Blair tried to bring them back.
We think it is legitimate and right in this day and age to ask people to carry identity cards.
But he failed.
Within 100 days, we believe we can scrap the ID cards.
Now we face an even bigger threat. 1 year ago, the government told us that we would never get a digital ID system. It wasn't even in the Labour Party.
Wow.
The government told us that we would never get a digital.
Look at this. Labour rejects Blair's call for digital ID cards to cut migration. In an intervention less than 48 hours after Sir Keir Starmer took office, his predecessor renewed his call for digital ID cards to help with border control. And if you guys remember, slimy bastards. You guys remember last week? If there's anyone here that was watching along last week, they literally put a press release out saying that we are introducing ID to help tackle migration. Wow. Wow. I didn't know this. That's so hilarious, man. It's like these guys want to make people insane. You know, they just lie, they deceive, dishonest. It's crazy. And then they think people forget, you know, and you can't hide. Look, these guys have caught them in the act, showing us it here. That's mental.
Digital ID system. It wasn't even in the Labour Party manifesto. But Keir Starmer recently told his cabinet and the media that he is considering plans for a mandatory digital ID scheme after influential Labour think tanks, including the Tony Blair Institute, piled on the pressure.
Digital ID will make our interactions with each other and with the state faster, cheaper, and more reliable.
But I think that 20 years or so on, a couple of decades on, people are looking differently about the idea of digital then cards, probably more digital ID now.
And last week, the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, confirmed her support for digital ID.
My long-term personal political view has always been in favour of ID cards.
No one voted for digital ID, and the government has no clear mandate to implement one. Yet now we're on the brink of having every adult in the UK forced into a digital ID scheme, inserting the state into our everyday lives. A digital ID is much different to a physical ID. They facilitate the collection of vast quantities of personal information into population-wide databases, which can be amalgamated, searched, and analyzed to monitor, track, and profile us all. So,
remember guys, China #1.
What does the public think?
Sounds pretty Orwellian to me, so I think keep it away.
There's so many things that they are trying to make us scared of. You know, it's control under the guise of safety, and I'm not quite sure I agree with that. I don't know if I want my child's information on a piece of card with.
Very well put. Succinct. Say that again.
You know, it's control under the guise of safety.
Control under the guise of safety. The modus operandi. It's always that, isn't it? Which, funnily enough, what we're going to watch next is not exactly the same argument, and we'll get into it, but there are at least similar wording or narrative used in this Bitcoin controversy that's going on. Talking about, what do they call it? CSAM, Kazam. So, they're saying it's to protect the kids. Well, they're not quite saying that. They're not quite saying it's to protect children, but they're saying it's to protect node operators. But anyway, we'll get into that. But yeah, just remember that's important.
You know, it's control under the guise of safety, and I'm not quite sure I agree with that. I don't know if I want my child's information on a piece of card where somebody else can get hold of it.
I think it's wrong in as much as we get these people coming over on boats who have no ID and they're getting put up with no information whatsoever.
So does that mean we should all have one?
No, because like I say, we've already got ours. We've got all my national insurance numbers and all that lot, you know what I mean? So
this is not accessible to many people. I guess the homeless community.
We've got it all, mate. We've got it all already. You ain't fucking stupid. You're not falling for your fucking bullshit. Fucking golems, ring of power.
Do you think the government would do a good job of keeping the data secure and safe?
No.
No?
No.
No? Okay.
No, not at all.
Breaking news.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Struggle more with digital ID.
Amazing. What great response.
Do you think the government would do a good job of keeping the data secure and safe?
No.
No?
No.
No? Okay.
No, not at all.
Breaking news, because it has been revealed that the personal details of UK special forces and spies were included in the huge data leak.
Secret agents from the GCHQ department tasked with stopping ransomware attacks say they're dealing with at least one incident every day.
At the time of the hack, the information that they held was the names and addresses of all of those who registered to vote between the years of 2014 and 2022, including those not on the public register.
They haven't been doing a very good job for the first time now, so they're going to start them doing it now. So, it's just another form of sort of control, basically.
The idea would be every adult needs to present a digital ID card on their phone or a computer to show who they are when they get a job or try to migrate, that sort of thing.
I feel like it's a slippery slope.
Okay.
I think that's my guess. I mean, I would have to look into the specifics of it, but I feel like it could be, the end might not be what's intended.
We've released a groundbreaking report that takes a deep dive into digital ID. Checkpoint Britain, the dangers of digital ID and why privacy.
Okay, so they're debunking the narrative here about unauthorized immigrants or migrants. It says here, they will not use their issued digital ID and instead rely on fake documents or off-the-book employment and housing, will continue to rely on fake documents or off-the-book employment and housing.
Must be protected. At their worst, digital ID systems can enable population-wide surveillance, curb civil liberties, predict and shape people's decisions, or be abused for the tracking and targeting of marginalized groups. Independent polling commissioned by us through YouGov reveals a clear majority of the British public, 63%, do not trust the government to protect the vast amounts of personal information collected in digital ID schemes. And there was little evidence to prove that a digital ID system would deter illegal immigration or employment fraud. It would instead burden law-abiding citizens and businesses. We need to make sure that we're on the front foot, building up the biggest campaign possible ahead of any government announcement on digital ID. But we are only as strong as the support we receive. Before Christmas, we're ramping up our campaign efforts with planned actions, and we set a goal to reach 2,000 Big Brother Watch supporters. We've also set up a petition and are now at 90,000 signatures. When we reach 100,000, we will take the petition to 10 Downing Street to deliver your message to the Prime Minister. You can find the links to donate and sign our petition in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Okay. We learned some new things there. Quite like Big Brother Watch. It's a good channel. Yeah, apparently, not verified this, but I did read somewhere about Tony Blair's son being involved in, or a main financier, or the founder even, of the company that they're going to be using to create the digital IDs, which is interesting. So now what we're going to do, we're going to move on. To this Bitcoin controversy. We're going to finish on this. And so we've got a bunch of big players weighing in. It's kind of started. We've got BitMEX here saying you should read our 2018 article on competing with Bitcoin Core. Running NOTs is not an effective way to say fuck off Coretards, since both NOTs and Core were largely written by the same people. This is very similar to the desire of the large blockers to fire Core in 2016 and to 2017, yet they also ran clients written by the same team like Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Classic, etc., etc. And then we've got Adam Back coming in here saying, I'm pretty sure most of the hate is from people who can't code, never looked at code, couldn't read it if they did, never talked to the mainline developers, don't understand the computer science and information theory limits, second and third side effects, etc. But, you know, rage on. And this guy here, Jubilani, says, yes, who is using Bitcoin, more coders or non-coders? It's this approach of Dr. Bax that feels closer to how he'd run one of his own companies than how one should contribute to a collaboration network. This attitude makes me question motive and intent, so it's safer to distance. Adam Back replies, it's mostly non-computer science people, but you don't have to be computer science uber geek to understand. Coders are a minority, about 0.05%, 50 million people. People who understand in reasonable detail, perhaps 1% of that, 500k people, and enough to usefully argue about trade-offs, probably 1% of that 5k. Hence, all the circular arguing. People just need to communicate and calm down. We all care about keeping Bitcoin hard money focused. The Bitcoin mission. Bitcoin is a new hope for humanity. We must preserve it for future generations. Adam says here, everyone understands we don't want spam. Developers have been fighting this nuisance since 2010. Getting angry doesn't help inform low-level changes that are focused on continuing that fight. They're misinterpreting the low-level details into being pro-spam, which is wrong. Adam says here, I just want to stop spam and misuse that makes it hard to run nodes, and the increase in op return is to fix the malincentive bug to create fake pub keys, which is bad for nodes. Nick Zawa says, this is such utter illogical bullshit. You fool fewer people with it every time you spew it. Stop already. Zamir says, hi Nick, hope you respond to this. Currently, a malicious anonymous miner running Core V30 could mine a block with illegal CSAM content, larger files in the block, and all the nodes, regardless running NOTs or Core, will accept the block as valid, right? Zabu says, if they did so, there would be hundreds of jurisdictions chomping at the bit to prosecute them and thousands of nodes chomping at the bit to sue them. Incentives. Zamir says, jurisdictions can't be trusted. Epstein files are still not out. Bad actors could be law enforcement. Who knows? I am seriously worried about Bitcoin. This is our last chance. We won't get another Satoshi to create something like this and stay anonymous. What else can we do? Zabu says, the imperfect solutions I described are far better than no solution. Blackpilling is not a solution. Anyway, there's a lot of back and forth, different perspectives, and so what we're going to do is we're going to watch a video. We're going to end on this about the Bitcoin Core V30 controversy.
Hey everyone, in this guide we're introducing
Atera is the IT game.
That we'll get one of the topics that we'll get into next that continues to be on fire, like with lots of drama on social media, is around op return and Bitcoin Core V30 and knots. So I was very curious going into this. I had tweeted it maybe a month or two ago. We were at some monthly meetup at Presidio Bitcoin, and like no one really cared about this topic or thought it was that big a deal or weren't paying attention or whatever. And I tweeted that out, and the people on social media got mad at me.
Meaning you just tweeted that people weren't, at the meetup, people weren't really concerned with this topic that Twitter seemed to think was super important.
Yeah, right. And I'm not saying the topic's not important. We'll get into, I actually do think it's important, but I don't think it's as important. If all you did is read social media, you feel like Bitcoin's dying in like before the end of the year. Yeah. And I just think if you get outside that bubble and talk to people who are in the Bitcoin space or Bitcoin investors or users, that, I mean, they're either ignorant of the imminent demise of Bitcoin or they don't believe the hype or what have you. So I was curious going into this event, like what do business people, what's on the top of their mind? And I certainly didn't speak with everyone there and ask this specific question. So this isn't necessarily everyone's take, but the people I did speak with, they either were oblivious to it or consider this like complete noise to them. They don't think it's a big issue. They're not looking to like change Bitcoin software. They don't think Bitcoin's going to die soon. So kind of a nothing burger within that event.
Mm-hmm. Is the argument for Bitcoin going to die, is that it's going to be overloaded with spam, or there's going to be like it's too divisive that nobody can get consensus on it, or what's the kind of Bitcoin going to die kind of position?
As far as I can tell, there's a few threads there, but the one that seems to have the most tenacity and volume right now is around CSAM. So like putting illegal content,
I see,
and disgusting content, illegal content in the blockchain, and an assertion that Bitcoin Core V30 is enabling this, or enabling it in a way that hasn't been possible in the past. So
that would be that the binary data gets stored in the blockchain in transactions or something?
Yeah, well, right. And specifically, in this case, the op return, an op return transaction. So I think this specific topic is a good one to think about. It's a little concerning though, raising so much. Like it's good to discuss it and think it through, but like if we raise so much awareness to it, like does it draw people who aren't into Bitcoin's attention to it, and potentially become like a legal or political battle? So there's a little bit of a tension there, but I guess let's talk. Let's talk about that. So first of all, it's always been possible to store data in the Bitcoin blockchain. So it was possible in the past. Before op return even existed in Bitcoin, it was added in 2014, so over a decade ago. It was possible after it was added. obviously anyone paying attention in the last few years has seen that JPEGs have been added to the blockchain. I am not aware of any CSAM in the Bitcoin blockchain, so I don't believe that has been added yet, but and I hope it never is. But it would be possible to add it to the blockchain, and it'll be possible after, with or without Bitcoin Core v30, with or without knots.
How much binary data can you store? Is this is like some? I guess it must be limited by the block size, so it's some sub threshold of the block size. But is it like 50% of the block size or 20% or?
I mean, you can basically fill up the entire space with it, because the consensus rules allow for it. So this whole op return debate, there's currently an 80 byte limit. That's a policy though, not consensus.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are able to get a transaction to a miner directly or relay it through a more permissive route of nodes, or you are a miner yourself, you can mine an op return with more data. You can also mine using the inscriptions method that's been developed, where you're using witness data, which is both cheaper and you can store even more data, because with witness data, you can store 4 times more data. So up to 4 megabytes. And then there's a variety of other ways to, even if those are somehow stamped out, those methods of storing data, you can just store data in public and private keys. There's a really good BitMEX research post on that a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or so, on unstoppable JPEGs on the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's always been possible, still be possible. It'll be possible with or without these different Bitcoin implementations. I think the concern with changing the op return limit, it makes it easier for someone to do. Although it's been noted by people that you can both store larger images, and it's 4 times cheaper to store images using the inscriptions method versus op return. So anyone, unless you're intentionally being, it's not even malicious. It's more like if you want to make a point,
mm-hmm.
like a political point,
right,
that op return is bad, or like big op returns are bad. That's really the only rationale I can think of why anyone would use op return to store an image versus inscriptions. Because if you want to actually, if you just genuinely want to store images and do it cheaply, then you use inscriptions. If you want to attack the network and bloat as much data as possible,
right,
then you would use inscriptions, because you can store more data. So I think the only reason, and I'm sure we'll see some op return images once, or either now, just going through a miner, or once Bitcoin Core v30. I guess if you want to attack it that way, you'd wait until v30 is released so that you could blame it on that version of the software. But I think we'll see that, just people trying to create a narrative.
mm-hmm.
But I think the more interesting discussion about is Bitcoin Core v30 with the unlimited op return size, does it somehow increase risk with the CSAM stuff? One thread I think worth discussing is that if there are tools that let you view images on the blockchain, like
mm-hmm.
I believe mempool.space, and I think maybe I'm forgetting who it is, but I think there's a few tools out there that let you view inscription JPEGs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's tools that let you view op return based images, but you can imagine those being created if they're not already created.
Right.
And so anyone has those types of viewers, like what's the legal culpability for them if CSAM or some other illegal content is shown? I'm not a lawyer, I don't know.
Imagine bringing your side project to life.
don't know. But even independent of the legality, if it's easy for anyone to use such a tool. So,
Not Fox in the chat here says AWS went down and killed the internet for hours all over the world the other day. Did you see that, bro? Yes, I did actually. Another win for decentralization. Absolutely. Just goes to show how much we've relied heavily on a couple of different systems. Same happened with Azure not that long ago. Both AWS and Azure running way too many services, platforms. And we're guilty in crypto as well. A lot of people running the front ends on AWS. So yeah, I did see that. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's good to see because maybe, you know, people are realizing that it's not the way forward. Maybe people are seeing the flaws in the centralized model. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Not Fox. Great addition there.
I'll just continue while Max gets set up. So I think if there's broadly accessible tools that let you see images, and then there's really disgusting content or illegal content shown, I think that's horrible for branding and PR of Bitcoin.
Yep.
Even if no one working on Bitcoin wants that to happen, Bitcoin node software doesn't enable viewing or accessing images like that. If there's external tools, I at least think it's bad for the image of Bitcoin. So that's something I think that people should follow up on is with people who have created these image viewers, get their thoughts on it and see how they think they should, if anything should change.
Would it be easy to, I don't know all of what Knots does, but would it be easy to like just have a way where that data can exist for people who want to have access to it, but it's easy to like raise flags and be like, hey, if you want to run a version that doesn't have that, you can just kind of run that, and you can run either one, but they're kind of compatible with each other? Or is there a problem that like in the future, if you tried to spend from stuff that involved those transactions, you'd have to somehow be exposed to that binary data?
I don't know if I fully understand the question, but you can't spend an op return for one thing.
Right. Yeah.
And I believe Bitcoin Core obfuscates that data while it's stored on your hard drive. So, so like virus scanners and stuff, if they're scanning it, don't detect it. But I think one of the arguments being made is that somehow it's like endorsed in Bitcoin Core v30 because of the removal of the limit. And I don't think that argument has much merit. Again, the consensus rules allow for data to be stored in Bitcoin. It's permissionless, so people can put illegal content, disgusting content in the blockchain. Let's hope they don't, but like they can, and that's the consensus rules everyone's agreed to. So for me, I think the main thing is I don't see V30 as Bitcoin Core V30 is changing anything. But it did make me think about these image viewer tools, and that could lead to Yeah,
I did notice that, what this guy was just saying in the conversations online, public discourse, that people are saying that it enables this kind of behavior, which potentially it does, but it doesn't advocate for it. It's not inviting people to do that. I think that's a bit dishonest.
Bad, like I've said a few times now, bad branding for Bitcoin, and I do think it's dangerous if like that becomes a huge topic, and then how policymakers react to that, I have no idea. But that's one thread. One thing I definitely wanted to talk about, and we talked about this in an episode back in maybe April or May. I probably made these points then, but I'm going to make them again now.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was engaged on social media, responding to some of the concerns. and I thought, and then I got to a point where I feel like I said everything I had to say, and it felt like the conversation.
Yeah, I thought we were done with this forever. What the fuck?
I kind of felt like the conversation was nonsensical at that point.
I still do.
And I was dismayed by some people I've worked with for years, seeing things differently, and I really don't understand their perspectives. But I just thought it would go away, like you just said, Mac. So I stopped engaging on social media on the topic. But we're talking about it again today because it's a bigger topic than ever now. It hasn't gone away. The volume's been 10x'd. So I wanted to at least talk about, because some people that are sort of neutral or at least don't like the drama that are now raising the question, why doesn't Core just not do anything? Like then this top drama will go away. And I wanted to talk about that because I don't think that's the right decision. I think it's important that Bitcoin Core developers listen to all the concerns, and I think there has been a lot of listening. But let's go through the reasons for making this change. So number one is concern. There's a long-term concern and a short-term concern. Is everything okay? People, you guys are smiling at me.
No, it's all good.
Okay. Or I'm remote, so I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the long-term concern is mining centralization concerns. And let me walk through the logic here. And I really want you guys to pressure test this because I've shared this privately with folks that I respect and they didn't seem to get it. So I don't know if I'm wrong or I'm not explaining it well. So let's give it another try.
Okay.
The mining centralization concern is that if there are Bitcoin transactions that are consensus valid that are not being relayed on the network, but there's enough incentive and demand to get them mined, then those who want them mined will go straight to the miners. And we saw a product called Slipstream come from Marathon to satisfy this demand.
And Mempool's Accelerator.
And Mempool's Accelerator. So those are single company services, proprietary APIs. And if they become popular enough where a lot of high fee paying transactions get submitted to them, that's very dangerous for Bitcoin. Because imagine if you are a new miner, you want to begin mining. We want to make mining, or we want to keep mining permissionless. We don't want to introduce barriers. But let's say the three of us start a new mining company, we enter mining, and then we learn that just by plugging into the peer-to-peer network, we're only seeing 80% of the revenue potential in transactions because the other 20% is in this private database from a company because these consensus valid transactions are not being relayed on the network. Then we learn
it makes it tough to compete, right?
Yeah, then all of a sudden we look at our business model and our spreadsheet and our calculations. We're like, we can't just get 80% of that. We need 100% of the revenue to compete. It's hard enough with 100%, let alone with a 20% haircut. So then we learn, we have to go strike a business relationship with this company like Marathon. And it's like, we got to get chummy with the executives and meet them and travel, like people have to travel different countries and steak dinners, and they have a lot of pricing pressure. Clearly that's not a good future for Bitcoin. So I don't really see how, I really don't get the refutation of that. The only thing I think you could refute or debate about is at what threshold does that risk get bad enough where miners would feel a need to do that? But it's definitely a trend you don't want to encourage. So how do you discourage that? Well, you discourage it by not having relay policy in the dominant implementation, Bitcoin Core, that prevents consensus valid transactions that such as the op return. So that's one motivation for changing op return. And then the second reason was more of a short-term urgency. Because you could argue with the first one, it's like, well, is it a problem yet? Why don't we just wait for those reasons to go away. Or, maybe it's a fad, they'll go away. But the second one was more urgent. And this is where certain protocols built on top of Bitcoin, such as BitVM-based systems, they want to stick some data in the blockchain, like a zero-knowledge proof. And we talked about this before in the show, but that data for the zero-knowledge proof exceeds 80 bytes. So those protocols are not able to store that data in an op return if they want to just naturally broadcast Bitcoin transactions and have them relayed and get mined. And those protocols don't want to have to sign business deals with miners or sign up for the Slipstream service to get it mined. So since op return was not available to them, they instead had to come up with a scheme where they're storing that data into regular transactions. So they go into UTXOs, unlike op return, because with op return, it's provably unspendable. It's the definition of op return. So the op return data doesn't have to be stored in the UTXO set permanently. But this data, they want to be permanent. They'll never spend those UTXOs. There'll be no reason to spend it, and there'll be no economic, they don't want to spend the money to spend them. So it'll be permanent bloat to the UTXO set. So that's bad for all Bitcoin users. Everyone using running Bitcoin software, they're worse off if they have to store that data permanently. So if you can instead store this 140 bytes or whatever it is in an op return, you don't have to store that data permanently. Bitcoin's a healthier network. So because those protocols, the reason it was urgent is because they were planning to launch or go live imminently. So like there was an urgent need to not do it the unhealthy way and do it in a relatively healthier way. So, you can, regardless of what your opinion is on if a zero knowledge proof should be spam or not, like I definitely don't think that's spam. Like if 140 bytes gets us like incredible scaling off chain, that's exactly what engineers should be trying to think of. So I don't even think it's spam, but even if you do think it's spam, it's better to stick spam. It's better to have a healthier way to store the spam than an unhealthier way to store the spam. So those are the two motivations that I'm aware of. The third motivation is more philosophical, but again, on a previous episode, we talked about the difference between consensus and policy. And in an ideal world, there is no policy from Bitcoin software which prevents consensus valid transactions to be relayed, right? We want those to converge so that there is no policy preventing consensus valid transactions to be relayed. So why have any policy at all to block relaying these transactions? Well, there's several transactions that are consensus valid that are security threats to Bitcoin. They can cause denial of service attacks. One of them we talked about previously is that you can construct a valid block that can take like an hour to mine. Or not to mine, to validate. So usually you can validate a typical block. You validate and can broadcast it around the world in less than 1 second.
Right.
So something that takes an hour is extremely unhealthy for the network. If I mine a block, broadcast it, I can begin mining immediately, and you guys are miners
Everybody
and you
else is
receive it,
busy.
and you're spending an hour trying to like decode it or validate it, and then you can't start mining again until you've done that. So those reasons are, I don't hear much debate saying we shouldn't have policy for that. Now, ideally, we fix consensus rules, and that gets into the great consensus cleanup, which is also something we've talked about. Let's save that for another day. But ideally, those are fixed at the consensus layer. The only policy that exists in Bitcoin Core that isn't related to those grave denial of service attacks is op return. So it can philosophically, you can argue that was the only policy that's kind of paternalistic, like where the Bitcoin Core developers and project were saying, we think anything above 80 bytes is spam and bad. And that's a fine, that's a position one can take, but it's more paternalistic than than the other policies. So that's a third reason to change it. But you can argue that there's no urgency around that. But those are the reasons for this change.
They want you to think it's you who made this world.
Okay, well, we're coming up to the 2-hour mark, 10 minutes. So I think we're going to end it there. It was a nice little explainer of some of, you know, the drama that's going on in the Bitcoin community right now. Yeah, we'll probably keep following this to see what happens, see if there's any developments. But yeah, it's been good, guys, and we'll see you on the flip. Peace.
Unchecked governments have eradicated privacy and truth. Those who resist are brought down swiftly, but we refuse to submit. Unipunks are freedom fighters, protected by encrypted shadows. The future we're building is sovereign and uncensorable. The moonlit night is coming.